Over the past century, the United States has gotten involved in its fair share of Middle Eastern affairs. In 1991, America again found itself in the middle of an armed clash, this time between Saddam Hussein's Iraq and its neighbor Kuwait, in what would become known as the Persian Gulf War. Here are 5 points you should know to better understand this conflict. Few people would have called Saddam Hussein a stable leader. From the start of his reign in 1979, he ruled with an iron and often reckless fist. In 1990, Saddam sought to acquire Kuwait's vast oil reserves. Publicly, he justified the invasion by claiming that Kuwait belonged to Iraq in the first place and had been unfairly carved out as a separate country by the League of Nations. However, Kuwait actually became independent before Iraq's sovereignty, making his thinly veiled argument ridiculous. Either way, Saddam seized Kuwait on August 8, 1990, causing an international uproar, with the United States being the loudest voice.
The United States strongly condemns the Iraqi military invasion of Kuwait.
Soon after the invasion, the United Nations Security Council declared that if Saddam's forces did not withdraw from Kuwait by January 15, 1991, military force would be used. You can guess what happened. On January 16th, the offensive against the Iraqi army began, fought by a broad coalition of armed forces from the United States, United Kingdom, France, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt, among many others. The first stage of the Gulf War was named Operation Desert Shield, which actually began before the international coalition was brought together. When Saddam first invaded Kuwait, the United States rushed troops into Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, to prevent a possible attack. But after the Security Council's declaration of war, it became the American force that would invade Kuwait. The main phase of the war was codenamed Operation Desert Storm, which began on the morning of January 17, 1991. Desert Storm was a massive bombing campaign targeting Iraqi aircraft, anti-air defenses, oil refineries, communication lines, weapon factories, bridges, and roads using the latest American military technology, including stealth bombers, cruise missiles, and smart bombs. After a month of Desert Storm, the coalition aimed to finish the job. The coalition's ground offensive, known as Operation Desert Saber, began on February 24, 1991. By February 28th, the war was over.
And as president, I can report to the nation, aggression is defeated, the war is over.
In 4 days, the U.S.-led forces retook Kuwait's capital and forced the entire Iraqi army into retreat. In all, Iraq lost somewhere around 30,000 soldiers, while America and its allies only lost 292 total. The Persian Gulf War was an easy and lopsided victory for the United States, but not one without serious consequences. President George H.W. Bush decided not to depose Saddam Hussein, as he didn't believe regime change would be popular with America's allies. In the wake of the war, Kurdish and Shiite Iraqis rose up against Saddam, who in turn brutally crushed their rebellions. After the UN accused him of using chemical weapons against his own civilians, Saddam was forced to allow UN inspectors into Iraq. He barred the inspectors in 1997, and from then on, it became the United States' goal to remove Saddam from power. This snowballed into the U.S. invasion of Iraq and Saddam Hussein's capture by American forces in 2003. He was tried, convicted, and executed by the new Iraqi government in 2006.
Young people in large numbers.
The important thing to know about about the Persian Gulf War, is that U.S. troops stayed in Saudi Arabia after the war ended because we were worried about the Middle East oil supply. Now, it's not that we went into Kuwait to protect the people of Kuwait. We went into Kuwait to protect the oil. That was part of our oil supply, and we did not want this to interfere with the cost of oil or the price of oil in the world. There were other issues all over. Africa is always at war in this time, and we didn't go anywhere near it. We went specifically against Iraq to protect the oil of Kuwait. Now, Saudi Arabia definitely supported the U.S. keeping troops in Saudi, but it's going to cause problems later on. Remember, the holiest city of Islam is in Saudi Arabia. Christians aren't allowed into this holy city of Mecca, but just being near it can offend some people when it comes to religion. The other thing to keep in mind is Iraq. It's that Saddam Hussein is furious with what the Americans did. You have to understand that Iraq was a very oil-rich, wealthy nation before this. And after the Gulf War, they had to rely on food relief from the United States. We were very sure that he would want to come back at us, and as a result, we insisted that there be weapons inspections, constantly inspecting to make sure that he did not attempt to get biological or chemical weapons. As the conflicts in the Middle East start to wind down, the most shocking thing happens. On a day in November in 1989, as I was sitting in my junior year history class, something I never thought would happen happened. And that was that the Cold War began to end.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
here, right now. There is no other place I wanna be. Right here, right now, watching the world wake up from history. Right here, right now, there is no other place I wanna be. Right here, right now, watching the world wake up.
The sledgehammers in the hands of men not born when it went up. Stopping the West Berliners destroying the wall were soon dashed. As dozens of young men pulled on a rope and chains, the chant went up, Mauer...
All as souvenirs.
Both breaks are symbols, I would say.
After the fall of the Berlin Wall, it wasn't long before the Soviet Union itself fell. Without the strong political containment of the Soviet satellite states, of those countries that were taken over by the Soviet Union, without that control, and with the demoralization of the loss in Afghanistan, remember, it's a land war in Asia, the Soviet Union loses their land war in Asia, the oil prices fall. And while that might not seem like that big of a deal, the Soviet Union sold oil in order to pay for its communist country. Well, when the oil prices fell, the Soviet Union couldn't buy all the things it needed to feed, clothe, even run the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union could no longer meet the needs of its people, the people were not going to put up with the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union collapses within 2 years of the fall of the Berlin Wall at a time when we were still worried about nuclear war. And this brings us to the ramifications of the Cold War, the discussion we're not going to have until our very last class, because all of this leads to September 11th.